A crack in the facade. The fluorescent lights of Crestwood University hummed, a discordant symphony to Emily's already frayed nerves. She plastered on a smile for Mrs. Henderson in the history department as she passed, a brittle, unnatural curve of her lips. "Morning, Martha," she chirped, the sound too high-pitched even to her own ears. Her office offered little solace. Papers overflowed from her in-tray, a testament to the semester's relentless march. She picked up a stack of freshman essays, the familiar scent of cheap paper and desperation vaguely comforting. But the words swam before her eyes, morphing into blurry shapes, their meaning elusive. Could she really care about the proper use of semicolons when her entire world felt like it was crumbling? She pushed the essays aside, the dull thud a small act of rebellion. John would be here in 10 minutes. John, with his earnest eyes and quiet intelligence. She needed to pull herself together. For him, and for herself. Emily splashed cold water on her face, the shock momentarily clearing the fog in her brain. She smoothed down her silk blouse, the cool fabric a stark contrast to the turmoil within. Taking a deep breath, she practiced a neutral expression in the mirror, a mask of professional composure. It felt foreign, a costume she was ill-equipped to wear. Yet, she clung to it, a lifeline in a sea of despair. When the knock came, she straightened her shoulders and forced another smile. "Come in," she called, her voice betraying only the slightest tremor. Tears and truth. "So," John began, adjusting his glasses, "about deconstructionism. I'm still a bit lost on the application. Could you maybe give another example, outside of what's in the syllabus?" Emily swallowed, the dryness in her throat suddenly amplified. She'd been skating by all morning, her mind a whirlwind of accusations, denials, and the lingering scent of another woman's perfume clinging to David's discarded jacket. She forced a smile. "Of course, John. Think of marriage. The traditional understanding is..." Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, but the tremor remained. "The traditional understanding is a stable, unified entity. But a deconstructionist approach..." Her vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, trying to regain focus on the neat rows of books lining her office shelves, anything but John's concerned face. The carefully constructed dam she'd built around her emotions began to crumble. A tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. "Professor Carter. Are you all right?" John's voice was laced with genuine concern. She shook her head, unable to speak. Another tear followed, then another, until a sob tore from her chest, raw and ragged. He. The words caught in her throat. "He's been seeing someone else. I found messages. Pictures." The confession poured out of her, a torrent of pain and betrayal. "He lied to me, John. 4 months. All those late nights at the office, it was her." She buried her face in her hands, the dam completely broken, her sobs echoing in the small office. Comfort in unexpected places. A box of tissues materialized beside Emily. John hadn't said a word, just quietly placed it there. She grabbed a handful, the soft paper rough against her tear-streaked cheeks. He was with someone else," she choked out, the words tasting like ash. "David. My husband." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, but heavy, laden with John's unspoken empathy. He didn't offer platitudes or empty reassurances. He just listened, his gaze unwavering, a deep well of concern etched on his face. "I found messages," she continued, the dam of her composure cracking further. "Years of them. Lies. All of it, a lie." She remembered David's dismissive attitude lately, the late nights at the office, the subtle shift in his scent after he came home. Now, the puzzle pieces slammed into place, forming a grotesque picture of betrayal. She recounted the details, the saccharine pet names in the texts, the suggestive emojis, the planned weekend getaway she'd accidentally stumbled upon. As she spoke, she noticed John's posture. He leaned forward, his brow furrowed, completely absorbed in her pain. A stark contrast to David, who had lately seemed so distant, so preoccupied. John's quiet attentiveness was a balm to her raw, wounded spirit. He wasn't offering solutions, wasn't trying to fix her. He was simply present, a solid anchor in her storm. And in that unexpected place, Emily found a sliver of comfort. Beyond tutoring. The algebra textbook lay forgotten between them. Yates, Emily breathed, the name a soft reverence. His use of symbolism is just transcendent. John, perched on the edge of his chair, nodded enthusiastically. And the cyclical nature of his themes, the way he revisits old ideas with new perspectives. It's brilliant. They spent the next hour dissecting The Second Coming, Emily's usual crisp articulation softening with genuine passion. Later that week, they stood before a Pollock in the university gallery, a chaotic explosion of color. Meaningless drivel, a man muttered as he passed. Emily bristled. I disagree. It's about raw emotion, unbridled expression. John tilted his head, studying the canvas. I see a struggle, he murmured, a conflict between order and chaos. Emily's gaze lingered on him, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. He saw things. One afternoon, amidst a discussion of Keats, Emily divulged a childhood memory, climbing a forbidden oak tree in her grandmother's garden, the thrill of the wind whipping through her hair. The image painted was so vivid, John felt like he was there with her. Emboldened, he shared his own, building elaborate Lego castles with his younger sister, meticulously crafting defenses against imaginary dragons. As he spoke, Emily leaned forward, her gaze intense, encouraging him to elaborate. He noticed the faint scent of vanilla and old books that always seemed to cling to her. The air crackled with something unspoken, a current that hummed beneath the surface of their words. A forbidden spark. Emily adjusted her glasses, forcing her attention back to the diagram of the prefrontal cortex projected on the screen. But her focus kept drifting. John, seated in the second row, was taking meticulous notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. The lamplight caught the subtle flecks of gold in his brown hair. She found herself studying the curve of his jaw, the way his lips moved slightly as he mouthed the scientific terms. A warmth bloomed in her chest, unfamiliar and disconcerting. She quickly looked away, a flush creeping up her neck. The lecture ended, and students began packing up. Emily busied herself organizing her notes, trying to appear composed. Professor Carter, John's voice, laced with a hesitant politeness, cut through the chatter. I was wondering, did you have a good weekend? The casual question threw her. It was fine, she replied, a little too quickly. She gathered her courage and met his gaze. His eyes, the color of warm honey, held a depth of concern that momentarily silenced her. She saw something else there too, a flicker of, what? Interest. Just fine, he pressed gently, a small smile playing on his lips. Emily's heart skipped a beat. It was quiet, she amended, offering a weak smile in return. She knew she was staring too long, lingering in the space between them. The air felt thick, charged with an unspoken energy. The moment stretched, suspended, before another student interrupted, breaking the spell. Emily cleared her throat and turned away, the echo of his gaze burning on her skin. Hesitations and longing. It's complicated, Emily admitted, swirling her wine. The garnet depths shimmered, mirroring the storm within. John still in school, Sarah. A student. And David, it hasn't even been a week since the split. Sarah's hand covered Emily's. Sweetheart, David gave up any claim the moment he stepped out. And age is relative, truly. But ethically. Sarah's voice softened, comprehension filling her gaze. That's the core of it, isn't it? Tears welled. Everything feels so tangled. I feel, reborn, yet simultaneously repulsed. David's infidelity broke something vital. John's empathy, it felt like rescue. But is it right? For either of us? That night, her sleep was haunted by a gentle, unwavering rain. Not a cathartic deluge, but a clinging mist. John stood within it, dark hair slicked against his skin, his gaze searching. An outstretched hand, an unspoken invitation. She ran to him, the coolness a welcome relief against the throbbing pain. Awakening, the sheets were a twisted mess, the room stark and desolate. For 3 days, she skirted the library, claiming a headache. The quiet pressed in. She yearned for John's thoughtful comments, the fleeting smile that touched his lips when she amused him. She craved the sensation he evoked, of being truly known, cherished, more than just a lecturer, more than a wronged spouse. But the temptation was a treacherous tide, threatening to drown her. Resolve was essential. Discernment was paramount. She had to shield them both. Taking a chance. The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour cafe hummed, casting a sickly yellow glow on the scattered textbooks and half-empty mugs. John cleared his throat, the sound amplified in the otherwise quiet space. "Emily," he began, his voice a low rumble, I need to tell you something." He fiddled with the sugar packet in front of him, avoiding her gaze. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been expecting this, dreading it, since the day in her office. The raw vulnerability she'd displayed, the comfort he'd offered, it had irrevocably altered their dynamic. She took a slow sip of her lukewarm coffee, the bitter taste doing little to calm her nerves. "I know this is probably inappropriate," John continued, his cheeks flushed, "but I've developed feelings for you. Strong feelings. And I couldn't keep it to myself any longer." The confession hung in the air. Emily finally met his gaze, seeing the sincerity etched in his earnest brown eyes. She swallowed hard. "John," she said softly, I've felt it too. But it's complicated. My life, everything is complicated." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm, grounding. "I know. And I'm not asking for forever. I wanted you to know." A fragile hope bloomed in Emily's chest, pushing aside the fear and doubt. "Then," she said, her voice barely a whisper, maybe we could take a chance." Slowly. Carefully. With complete honesty. John squeezed her hand. "I'd like that very much." The cafe's neon sign buzzed outside, painting the window with electric pink and blue. A new beginning, fragile and uncertain, flickered to life in the early morning light. Whispers and scrutiny. The whispers started subtly, like the rustling of leaves before a storm. A stolen glance here, a hushed conversation there. Emily and John, walking across campus after a late-night study session, became the subject of speculation. John, usually oblivious, noticed the averted eyes and the sudden silences as they passed. Emily tried to ignore it, but the prickling sensation of being watched intensified with each passing day. The storm broke when Professor Davies, the department head, summoned Emily to his office. The air in the room was thick with unspoken accusations. "Emily," he began, his voice carefully neutral, "there have been concerns raised about your relationship with Mr. Davis." He adjusted his glasses, his gaze unwavering. "I trust you understand the university's policy on professional conduct." Emily's face flushed. She chose her words carefully, denying any impropriety while maintaining her composure. That evening, David was waiting for her at home, a predatory glint in his eyes. "So," he drawled, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "I hear you found a new protégé. Someone younger, perhaps more appreciative?" Emily's anger flared. "This is none of your concern, David." He chuckled, a cold, humorless sound. "Everything you do reflects on me, Emily. And a scandal like this? It could damage my reputation. Think about that." His words hung in the air, a veiled threat. Emily knew then that this was more than just gossip, it was a battle for control, and David was ready to play dirty. A new beginning. The Monday morning faculty meeting felt different. Emily walked in with John at her side, their hands subtly brushing as they navigated the crowded hallway. A few curious glances met them, quickly averted, but the air hummed with unspoken questions. As they reached the seating arrangement, Emily paused, then gently squeezed John's hand before taking her usual spot. John, with a reassuring smile, settled into one of the visitors' chairs, a silent declaration of their changed dynamic. The lecture hall seemed brighter that afternoon. Emily, energized by the newfound honesty between them, found herself weaving personal anecdotes into her discourse on Victorian poetry. She noticed John in the back row, his eyes fixed on her, a faint smile playing on his lips. His presence was a quiet reassurance, a steady anchor as she navigated the complexities of love and loss in Tennyson's verses. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Emily and John found themselves on a bench overlooking the campus green. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Emily murmured, leaning her head on John's shoulder. The scent of freshly cut grass and blooming jasmine filled the air. "Yes," John replied softly, his hand finding hers. "But not as beautiful as you, Emily." He turned her face up to his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. "I'm so glad we found each other." Emily smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached her eyes. "Me too, John. Me too." The future stretched before them, uncertain but full of promise, a new beginning etched in the shared warmth of their embrace.